Hi there.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
We've met in the past, obviously, and had chats, etc. Welcome to the Pakistan Association Bristol. We're pleased to have you here, and we look forward to you being successful in your candidacy, and the same to everybody else. Anybody else standing? Obviously, there's no favoritism here. So, Samuel, what sort of inspired you in the first instance to stand for public office? It's not the greatest of careers, is it?
Well, I think it is one of the greatest of careers. I think it's really important that we have elected leaders who want to see our communities improve. I think we all recognise there's loads of improvements that need to be made, whether it's better transport systems or whether, as we emerge from COVID, it's making sure our businesses recover or that there's jobs or access to employment, all of these things. We need leaders who are willing to put those actions, those deliverables ahead of party politics or ahead of this or that or the other, and that's why I've stood really, because I want to see our region grow and flourish. And I think the last thing I'll say is, when I look at my upbringing, I'm not trying to make out that I had a particularly tough upbringing. I don't think I did in the great scheme of things, but statistically I probably should have failed on those sort of benchmarks. I have dyslexia. I'm from a single parent family. My father moved to this country from Jamaica during the Windrush generation. I was on free school meals. All of those kind of things that we often look at and say, oh, well, that person's going to need lots of extra help and may not be able to achieve. I was able to achieve what I've been able to thus far. I studied at Bristol University. I have a BA, an MA. I started my own company and grew that. And now I'm standing for public office. And I was able to do that, I think, because I had someone who was committed to support me, who sewed into me, who mentored me. And I'm aware that not everybody has that, but in my view, that's what politics is actually all about. It's about creating opportunity for everybody, irrespective of background, to be able to thrive. And that's why I'm standing for office.
Picking up on your point, being a person of colour, I mean, what made you stand, being a person of colour, for the Conservative Party? Is because a lot of people of colour and ethnicity seem to feel that Labour is the party for them. They are the people who do the good work for the minorities. What made you go Conservative?
Yeah, thank you, After. And I would ask whether that is actually true. I think we inherit a lot of our political thinking, just from the community that we're part of, maybe from our parents, and admittedly, there are things we could point to within the Conservative Party that may make you say, as a person of colour, oh, actually, I don't feel comfortable with that. But that's true of all parties, actually. And when I think of, for instance, the huge numbers of people from Pakistan and India and Bangladesh who came to the UK following the war, who was it who invited them? Actually, it was Conservative government who said, come, be part of this country, be part of this collective and build. And so I would really want to ask the question, is it true that Labour are here to support people of colour? In my experience, it's not. And what's most important for me, and why I am a Conservative rather than Labour, is I believe in opportunity, equality of opportunity for all, irrespective of my background, irrespective of my heritage. I don't want someone pointing at me and saying, because your skin is slightly browner than that person, you're somehow worse off. When I look across the Pakistani community, I see innovative, entrepreneurial business leaders, community leaders, taking ownership of their own lives and the community lives and family lives, I don't see people who need lots of additional support and handouts or are held back necessarily. And that's the society I want.
So what you're saying is you would tend to, and it's a bit of a pun I suppose, you tend to agree with our motto, diverse in heritage and united in identity. So you're diverse in your heritage, but you're united in the sense that you're a British citizen and you want to represent the British people, not take into account colour and allow that to set you back.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not colourblind. You know, of course I see colour, and I think we need to. And I think, in fact, the colour-blind nature, ideas have been problematic for a long time. The idea of not seeing colour, I don't think is helpful, because actually, it's got to be more than tolerating difference. It's about celebrating difference.
Right.
And Britain, if it is anything, it is absolutely diverse in heritage. Absolutely. And that is ethnic heritage, but that is, and so you might tell and you can visibly see someone's different of identity, but it's also, you know, European diversity from all across Europe. It's, you know, historically hugely diverse. And exactly. And actually we need to recognise that is core to our identity as Britons. And we should celebrate that rather than trying to separate, which I fear Labour often try to do.
Okay. So, what are your priorities for the city and region?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so there's a lot of priorities, and I know we haven't got too long. But what are the key 4 areas for the combined authority? And for those of us or those watching aren't aware of combined authority, it's really important to just note that it's a really big job. Combined authority mayor, the West of England mayor, is about bringing together our whole region, not just Bristol, not just Bath, not just South Gloss, but our whole region, and unlocking investment for quite literally hundreds of millions of pounds to make sure that we have a transport system that actually works. I'm sure many of your watchers will be saying, okay, we definitely need that. It's about building homes and communities in a strategic sense. So where will those homes be? How will they be connected? It's about boosting business and ensuring that our economy recovers from COVID, firstly, and then goes from strength to strength. As you know, it absolutely can. We have an amazing, innovative and productive region, but there's a lot that we can do. And it's about providing a skills agenda through investment and through developing skills training that really delivers for those jobs of the future, those green jobs. And I've got priorities within all of those areas. Those are my top priorities, of course, the themes. But what are some that I'd like to just pick out really quickly? One of the things that I'm really aware of is that we are one of the most economically productive regions in the country. We, however, do also have an issue that productivity is underproductive, is underdeveloped in some areas and for some businesses. So we have what's called a slow economic productivity tail, which is long words, but it really just means there are loads of companies that could be more productive if they had a bit of a boost in one way or another. Right. And there are 3 areas that three priorities I'm really keen on pushing forward. One is about trade, how we boost our domestic trade, how we build stronger connections across the country, but also how we equip our businesses to be able to trade internationally. You know, we're in a post-Brexit global Britain world, and it's right that we start trading, making the most of the port in Bristol and the airport to make sure that we boost trade. The second one is innovation, how I can continue to invest in innovation. And there's some areas that are things like the DETI, the Design, Engineering, Technology, Innovation Lab that the combined authorities have been investing in. There are things like advanced automotive technologies that's been investing in, which is great. But it's also about our small and medium-sized businesses, how we can support them to innovate so that they drive forward. One of the things I'm really interested in and would look to work with our SMEs on is how we use the blockchain, which hopefully I don't lose everyone now, but how we use the blockchain and this new technology to bring together micro and SMEs, those industries, those companies that maybe aren't big enough to procure large contracts on their own, but using this new technology, actually we're able to create an ecosystem that brings those people together so that you might have 10 sole traders, but legally they're able to work through this mechanism as a single larger entity, and so they can secure larger contracts. So that really unlocks opportunity. And the last one I'll mention is inclusion. We need an inclusive economy, and there's things that we can do for that. 38% of our new businesses and enterprises come from the 50% most deprived areas of our region. And so I really want to see how we can increase our investment, increase our support in some of those more marginalised or deprived communities so that we can boost the businesses. So what does that look like? I'll be introducing community ambassadors so that actually there's greater connection and voice between communities and the combined authority, as well as mentorship schemes and various other initiatives so that we can build greater connection and boost that inclusive growth as we move forward.
Picking up on your inclusivity and artificial intelligence being brought in, what is it that you propose to do for our young voters, the newly eligibles, the 18-year-olds who now have the ability to vote? What can you promise them, or what can you give them in the way of hope that they can look forward to, that you're going to do to better their lives?
I think firstly you've hit the nail on the head. It is about hope, and we need a time of hope. We need to hope for a brighter future, and that hope is absolutely there. We need a leader who understands opportunity, who has created industry and created jobs, and I am that leader. When we look across the other candidates, they're not those leaders. So we need someone who understands opportunity, who understands innovation, who understands the future growth and where those opportunities lie. That's firstly. Secondly, we need to recognise that COVID and the impacts of COVID have disproportionately impacted under 25s, the group you're talking about. And as we talk about building back better, my vision for that is making sure that we create both investment in skills and training so that people can have more training, additional training for the jobs of the future. So those 18-year-olds who can now vote, but who are also looking out saying, what job am I going to have? Where am I going to live? I will be providing a greater investment into projects like Workforce for the Future, which will help people start and grow businesses, so supporting entrepreneurship. I think that's fantastic. We should encourage entrepreneurs to scale and grow. We need to boost that. So I'll be looking to invest in that and create opportunities for people to become bosses rather than employees. But I'll also be investing further in things like the Workforce for the Future and other programs that will ensure that people will have the skills. The Future Bright program. I said the Workforce for the Future. The Future Bright program will make sure that people have the skills they need for those jobs for the future. So maybe not creating their own businesses, but ensuring that the skills that employers need, we're able to provide them.
In the past, we had a situation in Bristol where the LEP, and at that time, obviously, WACA wasn't there, but there was a situation where extra help was being given for apprenticeships to ethnic businesses that took on ethnic apprentices. Are you, or have you thought about bringing something of that nature back into play? Because there are a lot of businesses who don't always have the resources to take on people and pay for their training. How would you sort of cope with that? How are you going to sort of help people in that environment?
Yeah, thank you. And firstly, I want to highlight the increased apprenticeship payments that have been made under Rishi Sunak's budget, twice scaled up, so £3,000 for each apprentice. I celebrate that. That's fantastic, and makes it much more possible.
Much more, yeah.
But yes,
in fact, that's a threefold increase, isn't it?
A threefold increase.
Yeah.
What I think what we need to, do, and the reason why I come back to the community ambassadors, is that what I recognise is under the WECA, the Combined Authority Growth Hub, there are a huge amount of grants, business support, employment support to support the exact grouping that you're talking about. However, what we see is there's a lack of engagement a lot of the time, and so yes, there is about maybe bringing on some more targeted support and provision, and my ethos for leadership is leading to level up. It is about leveling up, making sure there's equality of opportunity. I've mentioned that a few times. But actually it's not necessarily about creating new pots of money or projects, but it is about making sure that everybody knows about what projects, resources, grants are there available. And so that's why it's so important. It's about connection and communication firstly, and then moving on to the new projects.
Going back on that, from past experience and involvement in the apprenticeship field, I found, and other businesses within, as you know, I have my own business, and I found in other Asian businesses found that it was very helpful where the LEP took money out of its pot and helped to give that extra, so that deprived people within the communities were able to go into businesses where the business normally might not, looked at that avenue. So maybe something to consider.
No, and to reassure you, I'm absolutely committed to that type of approach where we talk about levelling up. It has to be actually action, and as you say, it's about seeing it as a whole communities. So where there are huge opportunities and a need to level up, I think it's absolutely appropriate that the LEP and WECA investment goes into those areas.
Samuel, as the if you're elected and as the regional mayor, how do you envisage bringing in inward investment into the city, into the region, and bearing in mind also at the same time we have a transport problem in the area, infrastructure, there's no metro system or anything of that nature, and at the same time keeping in mind the green house effect, the environment, the ecological effects on everything. How are you looking to handle that or address it?
Yeah, thank you, and I welcome the fact you've presented this larger sort of system view, because that's absolutely right, that we need to have a system view of understanding that it's not just about attracting inward investment from private actors and from government. It's about inviting and welcoming the right type of investment in the right types of projects. And so, as a businessman yourself, as a businessman myself, when we look at issues, we often see opportunity. And when we look at the lack of housing, that's national, not just regional. When we look at the lack of public transport, when we look at opportunities around green technology, innovation, growth, we are seeing huge opportunity for investment, not just from government who want to see social infrastructure growth, which they do, and I'll say I was on a call just a few days ago with Robert Jenerick, the Secretary of State, talking about devolution and how we unlock more government investment in the region. And I'm delighted to say that they are on board, government are on board and ready to invest in the region. But when we look at those issues or those challenges, we are presenting opportunities for private investment. The reason I phrase it like that is, I mean, I've just been having conversations with the UK UAE Business Council, and they're looking to the west of England. The UAE are looking to the west of England as a place of potential investment. So what do we need to do to secure that? One, we need to start communicating, we need to start branding our region as a place of excellence, of leading innovation and of opportunity. Then we need to start building relationships. So picking up on what some of the work that the LEP have already been doing with the Department of International Trade, and getting out there to the world across the regions to say, we're here and we're here with huge opportunity. And then we need to start presenting those opportunities and showing people where there is opportunity, because there absolutely is.
So to summarise, basically what you're saying is you're looking towards governmental investment in the region, you're looking towards enterprise, individuals or businesses coming in and investing, and you're looking towards bringing investment in from foreign countries.
Correct.
UAE, China, etc. I mean, I'm sure my Pakistani viewers will want to know, the voters, what is it that you maybe feel that you can do to work with Pakistan itself to effect trade in the region from Pakistan to here and vice versa?
Yeah. So I think firstly there's a lot of relationship building that needs to happen. I think it's fair to say that as a region, we have not necessarily done a brilliant job at presenting the case for why Pakistan should be investing in the region. I think that happens on a one-to-one or relational level. We have some fantastic ties between the Pakistani community here in Bristol and across the region with Pakistan. Of course we do. But actually, how do we scale that up? And I think when we talk about scaling that up and increasing that opportunity, a lot of it comes from relationship and showing not only willing, but actually a desire to build those relationships. It shows we need to show a desire to, and an opportunity, again, to take me back to that opportunity, to say that we are here, not only do we have opportunity, but we value the relationship. And then we need to start building upon those relationships that are already here. As I mentioned, people are, I know many of the Pakistani community are travelling, I mean, not under COVID times, but travelling back and forth to Pakistan, have very senior and significant relationships with people across the region. And it's absolutely right that we start building upon that. And I'll be absolutely looking to do that.
With reference to sort of building, I mean, we've had a very good working relationship with the outgoing regional mayor, Tim Bowles, a close friend of mine, and he's always been there, and he's set things up for the region, etc. My thought is, are you going to be building on that, or are you going to, which sometimes happens when positions change, that people undo what's been done? I mean, would that not be, if it's undone, it's a waste of time? It's
a huge waste of time, it's a huge waste of money, and in my view, we can't risk, and it is a risk, let me stress this, to to vote in Labour or Lib Dem because they so often position themselves as anti, the opposite of, the opposition, that's what we call them, isn't it, of Conservatives. The notion is, I need to come in and I need to change everything. We mustn't do that. That is a risk of our recovery. That is a risk of opportunity. And the kind of new trade links with Pakistan or elsewhere that we would like to see will go back to step one. We can't risk that.
Samuel, we had riots, or we had marches last year in the Bristol city centre. Black Lives Matter. I mean, what are your views on those events? What are your views on the toppling of the statue? And do you feel that more could have been done by Bristol City Council by preempting or pre-thinking what could happen, when this event came about?
I think firstly we need to recognise that actually it wouldn't have been a preemption. Actually, people have been raising concerns about the statue for years. I mean, over a decade. People have been talking about their discomfort with the statue, their discomfort with Bristol's slaving history or connection to slavery. Now, I think it's perfectly okay to be uncomfortable with things. I don't know that we're always brilliant at being uncomfortable with things in society at the moment. And just because we're uncomfortable with things doesn't mean we then should tear things down. We do have, and we're blessed to have a pretty functional democracy, actually. Notwithstanding all of the challenges that we have. In a global sense, we have a pretty functional democracy that actually the cornerstone of our democracy is representation. And when our elected leaders are not listening and then representing the people, there is of course going to be an issue. And of course it goes in the face of what we uphold across our country. Please go ahead.
With the police, the handling of the situation at the time by the police, do you think they did right in not going in heavy-handed and letting nature take its course, for a matter of phrase?
Listen, I'm not a law enforcement officer. I don't have that background, and so from a strategic position, policing position, I think it's very difficult for me to say. However, I am of course aware of the significant discomfort with that, the decisions that were made, and I certainly am very uncomfortable with seeing lawlessness. And let's be honest, I mean, that is what it was. It was lawlessness on our streets because people were unhappy with something, and we can't allow that to happen. That is not the society that we want, where people can do whatever they want, can act lawlessly because they're unhappy with something, because they feel something that day. That's not a civil society. So of course I absolutely stand in objection to that. However, I think Conservatives are often branded as law and order, pro-law and order. And of course, I've spoken about that, the absolute need for law and order, civil society, very, very important. But there are other types of Conservatives that are more libertarian. They're about liberty and freedom and small government. And I naturally much more on the side of liberty, freedom, small government, strong communities who care for one another and are resourced to care for one another by the government. And so when I see acts of very strong policing, I can feel uncomfortable with that. However, what we saw was very weak policing, which led to lawlessness. I suspect if there was more of a police presence, if there was more of a thought process that went in before the marches, and there was just a bit more of action, intervention at that point, we wouldn't have seen it get to where it did. And that should have been the first priority.
I mean, it would have been ideal if it had been democratically looked at and the statue removed or not. That would have been a better situation.
Correct.
So, one of the questions that always comes to mind is women, female safety. As you're aware, there's still slave trade going on. There's still abuse of women who are being brought in from abroad and then used for so many different things. What, or if anything, would you, as the regional mayor, be looking at doing to help, especially, I mean, from our perspective, from the Pakistan Association Bristol, is that some of our women, Muslim women, wear hijabs, they're out, and they do get abused, they do get a lot of grief from people. How can you, or what would you propose to do, work with the police to ensure that women overall, whatever aspect of life they're in, are safe?
Yes. A huge question. And so firstly, let me pick up on slavery, forced labour and abuses. Clearly fundamentally unacceptable. Fundamentally unacceptable. And something that we must speak very publicly and actively out against. Work very hard with the police to ensure that that is enforced. And as the public, we have a really important role to play in this. And modern day slavery is bigger today. There are more people in slavery today than there were during the Atlantic slave trade. It's rife. It's rife in Bristol. And I think that's the thing that people often don't recognise, that because we don't see people walking down our streets in shackles, we think it doesn't exist. But actually the questions we should be asking ourselves is, and not exclusively of course, but the questions we should be asking ourselves is, actually if you only pay £4 for your car to be washed and there's 5 or 6 people doing it and it takes 25 minutes, actually how much money are they really being paid? You know, if you're a GP and somebody comes into your surgery with chemical burns on their hands and all the speaking is being done by someone else and they're sitting there timidly, we should be asking, as the healthcare professionals, does this look quite right? As we would if it was a young person, we'd be asking, is that young person safe? So we absolutely have to stand out against that. We have a very strong Modern Day Slavery Act, pushed through, of course, by Conservative government. This was an issue that Theresa May took very seriously. So that's one thing. We absolutely need to speak out against this, and as a public, we have a position to play. In terms of respecting our diverse communities, our women who wear hijabs, or actually, it's not only that. I mean, we also see, of course, in the States, but it's been here as well, a huge amount of anti-Asian rhetoric and real fear around people from the Far East as well. And we need to be very, we need to have zero tolerance on this. And I would work very closely with Mark Shelford, the Police and Crime Commissioner, because he's going to get in, I'm sure, and with the police to make sure that it's absolutely zero tolerance. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's zero tolerance. But we can be proactive as well. And this is the last thing I'll say. What I would like us to see, and I would work actively if elected, is to bring the face of Asian women, of maybe hijab wearing women into the public eye much more. We need to get much more comfortable as a society with seeing the diversity that we've already spoken about that makes up our society.
Bring me to a point. Would you, I mean, in your capacity, if you were elected as the next regional mayor, in your own department, would you be looking to make sure that you have the diversity in your own department?
Yes, throughout the combined authority. I think it's really, really important to note that diversity, ethnic diversity, gender diversity, is good for business, so to speak. It's good for operations, and we absolutely need to increase that. And when I've worked in employment before, in employing people, the challenge that I've always put to myself or the teams employing is, if you can't find people of colour or diverse background for the job, you're not working hard enough. They're not there, which is the argument that's often been given. Oh, but there aren't any people of black minority ethnic background, so I can't. So we can't employ them. It's rubbish. We know that, and so we need to be more proactive in ensuring diversity across.
My last and final question to you is, and my viewers, my Pakistani and Kashmirian brothers and sisters who are going to go to vote on the 6th of May, what is it that we as Pakistanis can expect from you to do for us?
Huge question. To work with you, to work with the community, the Pakistani and Kashmiri community, to understand what challenges you're facing and what society you and community you want to develop and grow and thrive into. Takes me back to what I started off by saying, and I'll finish with this, is that the cornerstone of our democracy, of our society, our community, is representation. And so unless there is active communication, conversation, and an open door, then we can't. No council, no government can represent you. And so what can I do? What can I promise? The door is open, the tea is on, and the conversations are ready to be had so that we can build the society that we want to see.
Thank you very, very much, Samuel, for coming over and talking to us. Samuel Williams, your prospective or your candidate for the Conservative Party for the regional mayor of the region, the Southwest region,
West of England,
and Becca. Good luck. We wish you the very best. We hope, if you make it, to work with you. Thank you very much.